So, well, at least I got the applause. I may not get it later. One never knows where to start a story because no story has a definite beginning, or ending. Right? I'll just break in 1952. Right, we're living in New York, and I used to get home from work rather late. As I tell my stories, I see I was always working, and Harold didn't have anything to do. Right? Anyway, so he used to be free about in the early evening, and he wandered around New York. I mean, he had been from Philadelphia, and New York was just a place for him to wander, and he was interested in all this esoteric stuff, which I had just renounced. I mean, I had been brought up in a strict religious form, and for years I was going to be a nun, and all this kind of stuff, right? And I ran into a lot of problems, but that's a whole other story in itself, right? I began to see, I guess the biggest discovery I made in life was that religion and what's that other thing? Spirituality, whatever you want to call it, right? Weren't the same thing. It was a terrible shock. And I suffered from rebounds and decided that, Bertrand Russell was a great guy. And anyway, this was at this point when Harold was wandering around in New York, and he would pick up all sorts of characters. There are always characters in New York, but at this particular time, it seemed to me there were more. And he would find, he would expose himself in such a way that every one of these fellows, whatever they were selling, would get him hooked in some way. I remember one offered him to be the Bishop of Hippo for $25, and when I said no, they came down to $15. But well, that's just a sample, because every day it was somebody else, right? And I had to be pretty strong by this time to have walked to be excommunicated from by the Pope and all this kind of stuff. And I thought that this stuff is really junk. If I'm going to, all right. Well, anyway, you get the picture, right? I guess you don't want to hear the rest, huh? You don't need this one? I'll put it on.
It's going to slip off. We're going to need to put it on here.
Well, you're not going to put it in my head or something?
No, we're going to do it right here.
Oh.
There.
Thank you. Okay. So, anyway, he was bringing home all these ideas, and the worst thing was, you got to go meet this person. You got to go meet that person. And I put up with it for a while, and I thought, it's going too far. I have work to do, I have work to do. And I kept thinking, he'll get over it. And anyway, one night, he comes home, and he says, I was in, he used to go to Carnegie Hall every night. At that time, still happens, right? All the rich people go to see the concerts in Carnegie Hall, but they don't go to hear the concerts, they just go to be seen. And so they go for the first half, and the second half, right, there's always somebody outside who collects the tickets they're going to throw away. This time there was this old fellow, smiling, his dilapidated character, and he's collected all the tickets, and then he would sell the second half of the performance to anybody who really was interested in the music for 50 cents. So Harold saw everybody you can imagine. I mean, all the greats. I mean, you name them. You musicians know them all. I mean, real musicians, pardon me. I make slips. And, Rubenstein, Heifetz, these guys and stuff. And so he comes home this one night. I think it was Rubenstein he'd heard this time. And he says, and then after he went over to a little Carnegie next door, he says, I said, what were you doing there now? I'm afraid who was picking up there. And he says, well, I met this princess, Matchabelli there. Yeah? Well, I see you know how this stuff feels. So anyway, he wrote him a letter. When Harold wrote a letter, it was a 20-page letter. And so I'm home in the morning. He's gone off to work Monday morning. This was a Saturday. He writes in the letter, right? Phone rings, right? This is Princess Matchabelli. I said, hello. I have to speak to Harold Rudd. I have to speak to Harold Rudd right away. I said, well, he's not here. So, gritting my teeth. And so she says, well, tell him that Princess Norina Matchabelli called. I said, all right, I'll tell him when he gets here. And I hung up. So he came home. And he called me up. He says, did I get any phone calls? Always hope from the external world. And I said, oh yes. I said, since when are you hanging out with princesses now? I mean, he had dukes and these guys. I mean, they were all a bunch of characters, Napoleon, everybody. Anyway. So I just put her in a file with the rest of them. And anyway, he went to see her, and he wanted me to go. I said, I've given that up. So he did, and Harold was very much interested in getting on the stage. He'd had some parts on the stage, and he played some parts in Philadelphia from where he had been born. And he said, one of the things he asked Norina right away was, oh, now this Mayor Baba that you're talking about, does he have any connection with the stage or the film world? Now, I wouldn't say, it would be wrong to say that he really wasn't interested in this spiritual stuff because he'd been going nuts. But he was also very much interested, naturally, as most young people are, in living a life in the world, which you've come to have to do, And so she was clever. She said, oh, yes, right away. Yes, Baba has Gabriel Pascal, and so forth. Oh, he got hooked on him right away, on her right away. And so, as it did come to pass, and a short time later, Baba did send a messenger to Gabriel and got to meet Harold and have Harold work with him, and he did. In fact, he was living at the athletic club with Gabriel for about a year and a half. I mean, it was insane too. So if he didn't get into one, it was another. Anyway, he wanted me finally. Norina says, you must bring Virginia down here. And so I acquiesced, and besides, there was the possibility of getting on a stage. Which I've just about had enough about. So I went to see Norina with Harold, right? And she was staying at the Barbizon in the tower. What do you call it? Penthouse tower, something or other, up in the air. Right? And she was, as she's probably been described to all of you, right, in a beautiful black velvet dress and beautiful real pearls, long string with the turban, and very beautiful and somewhat haughty demeanor, I would say, from my point of view, right? And I mean, I was civil. And one thing I do remember she said, right, Harold was looking out the window and saying, "Oh, what a beautiful view, you know, Central Park South," and wishing he had the money to live there, you know. And Norina, I remember, did pull him over and pull us both together, and she said, "There is nothing out there. It's all in here." That I remembered about her. Okay? And so that was that, right? But it wasn't dynamic enough, apparently, or wasn't exactly the right person to open the path, right? And then it was announced that Baba was coming to the United States. Can you imagine that? He's coming. We just heard about him, and he's coming. I know some people, like Adele, have been waiting 9 years. Every day he's coming. We just heard about him, and he's coming. So it looks like somebody really did a tricky plan here. And where's he coming? He's coming to Myrtle Beach. My God. I mean, we lived in New York. I mean, first of all, it was in the South. I mean, who would go there? And well, I only tell you how things were. Not necessarily I was that way. But anyway, it got building up, and I was being pushed along with the tide, you know. But then I said, I don't know. And the next thing that came up is, Margaret Krask, right? She was to be on their side too, I guess. And so we went to see Margaret Krask, right? And I blame her. I really do. I mean, she caught my interest. And she explained to me. I said, "Well, I'm no judge of, you know, who this is or what significance is, but why should I go? What's it got to do with me? And if he's so great, especially what's it got to do with me? What's he need me for?" and Margaret's she just looked at me and she said, "You belong to Baba." So, well, I thought, oh, I'll go, you know. So we came. Started out about 11 o'clock at night, drive, go on that ferry. You guys are all too young to have been on that ferry ride. Oh my God. And and we got here pretty late, and then they said we're going to see Baba the next morning. We got here late on the 16th. We're going to see Baba in the morning. And this was his first public, what was the word we decided on? Public meeting? No, interview. Open day, right, in America. And it was the opening of the center in Myrtle Beach, right? And we happened to be the first two to meet Baba. In this, we were the opening, and we came out. A number of people whom were staying at the same hotel at the Lafayette, Fred, Ella, John, and other people. We all came out together in the morning. We had to be here 7 o'clock because they had to be here 7 o'clock. So we were the first ones in. We went up on the back porch of the barn where Baba was seeing, he was going to see people in the barn. The barn's a long thing like this, right? And Baba's sitting in the middle here, inside. And then you go in this door and you go see Baba, and then you go out that door. And that's where Dell is. And so, and we're starting, we come up to the doorway. Oh, Baba, Harold had asked Baba, it's Margaret Krask, I'd like to bring Baba something, you know, trying to butter him up or something. But he says, what does he like? And what does she come up with? He likes asparagus. Well, here we were, we went on board this big vacuum, right? And I got all the asparagus that would fit in, cleaned it, and put it in it. And here we're dragging this big of asparagus to meet the master. So this struck me kind of silly, but anyway. we went up in the back steps of the barn here. Right? Margaret is there, Margaret Krask, and Delia De Leon. And they're standing there, right? And they said, take off your shoes. Well, that didn't sit well with me at all. You guys are all used to taking off your shoes. I never took off my shoes in order to talk to anybody in my life. Didn't help. And so, and the asparagus and without shoes and in the deep South. But the funny part of it, I was there. And so then Margaret says, now, when the door opens, you go in and you get 5 minutes with Baba. Harold, the actor. 5 minutes, she said. I didn't drive all the way down here for 5 minutes. I need more time. Well, I was young once, believe it or not, and when you're a young girl, you get embarrassed easily. And I was embarrassed, and so I said to Margaret, I don't need to see him. Give him my 5 minutes. You know, the topic of this talk is I don't know what I'm doing. We don't know what we're doing. and Margaret says, she says, nothing doing. He gets his 5 minutes and you get yours. And if he needs more time, he'll get it. So the screen door opened. That's all it was a screen door, but you didn't see a thing inside, right? And so Harold went in the door with the asparagus. Got rid of that. And I didn't know what happened. I didn't know what happened. Now I know. And he went in, and this is the way he tells the story, right? He says, I said, I'll walk right up to him, and I'll look him in the eye, and I'll be able to tell if he's a perfect master, which he was advertised as at that time. I'll be able to tell. So, this is Harold's story. He walked in, and as he got near Baba stood up toward him, right? And he rushed into Baba's arms, crying and collapsing. And Baba said to him, he loves me very much. And he started to cry again. And then Baba said, and I love him very much. And it was a tremendous, tremendous experience for him. I mean, it was much more than he was thinking about, right? He didn't look in Baba's eyes, he didn't ask. Then he told Baba that he wanted, some help, and Baba arranged for him to meet Gabriel, and he was tied up with Gabriel until the day he died. Anyway, so there was that. Now I'm outside, right? And I don't know, just maybe an instant before I went in, I felt like I wanted to be quiet. Somebody kept talking to me, I don't know who, and I just said, I don't want to talk now. And that was the first sign I had that anything was going on here. And Margaret opened the door. Now see, this is what's so terrible. The only thing that you want to know or to hear, to have communicated, is the only thing I can't give you. Because it's not anything that I can tell you. It's not like asparagus or talk or anything like that. It's the experience that I can't explain. But it's nonetheless real. And it's very frustrating for me, and it must be terribly frustrating for you to hear all about asparagus and not hear about what actually happens when you meet Baba. It's just, it's awful. Anyway, I can't tell you what happened because I don't know. I don't. I was immediately out of my mind. That's the. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I can't tell you. I wasn't dreaming. I wasn't asleep. But the whole universe disappeared. It just was gone. There was nothing. I never saw Baba, or I never saw anybody in the room or anything about it. And I have no recollection of ever having been there. But what I did feel, again, is something I can't tell you, because it was okay. It was just beautiful. The only thing I did see was this tremendous light, golden light, and experienced peace. But there were no forms, there was no place, there were no people, there was nothing at all. And in that state, I mean, people who were there told me they introduced me to Baba, and they told Baba all about me, and Baba said, but I was not there. I mean, at that state. And in that state, I wandered out the other door over here. And I had no idea at all. I was in the woods, apparently, and Adele found me in the woods. And that's the first sensation I had. Somebody's pulling me. And then I was bigger than she was. And so she had to get help, and they were pulling me and she kept yelling, snakes, snakes. But I had, to me, it didn't mean anything to me. Nothing meant anything to me. If a dinosaur had come, it would. I can't see. This is what's so difficult, right? I can't tell you, but it's there. I know it's there because and I can feel it now. You see. Well, what shall I say? Yeah. I don't know. That's all I can tell you. I don't know, but I know that I know, and I know because it's there in my experience. Okay, so I don't know. That's the way it was. And I was spaced out for a long time. I have this funny little picture. I got some artifacts. I'll pass this around in a little while. Right? This is a picture of me a month later. I was looking like. And I'll pass this around. And then I was skipping down the main street. Somebody stopped me. Anyway, I'll get on to the next section. Oh, so then we were in New York, right? I went to Fred and Ella. They had the people coming all the time, Monday night meetings, right? And I was really spaced out. That's the only thing I can tell you. I was spaced out. It's a good thing it was summertime. I didn't have to teach. I was gone. And things happened. I mean, well, for example, when I say things happen, I went to Ella's one day, and she says, look, Virginia. She always called me Virginia, the German. And so she had this bracelet made. She had a piece of Baba's hair in it. And so she says, touch it. And I touched it. And when I touched it, the jeweler had left just a teensy bit of hair sticking out. And I touched the hair. And when I got home, I zipped out, really zipped out. Now, I don't know what all these things are. I mean, it probably, like some psychologists around here are telling me they're psychologists. Right? I mean, you guys can figure it out, whether it's your subconscious or your middle conscious or whatever. I don't. But these things were very real kinds of experiences, right? As real as dreams are. Although they're not real, but they're real. Okay, you know what I mean. And so I get home, and I was sitting here, right? All of a sudden, right, I see this big white horse in my room coming at me. And the thing is, I had never heard about a white horse avatar. I had never heard this, I swear. In fact, I must tell you, I never heard the word avatar before. It was a long time, even after that, I think, that this word came. I mean, it was, it's an anomaly to me, who read so much, who read everything, and who so much, and who had Baba's books sitting in the table next to me and never read any of them. It's all happened to me because later, at least some of the professors I work with say, oh, you made this up. You decided that this was going to happen, and it happened, but it's not true, right? It didn't. Well, anyway, this big white horse is coming at me, right? And reared up, and up in the saddle is Baba in black armor. And he rears up the horse, and he goes like this, "Follow me!" So then I used to like that pamphlet. Remember that pamphlet, Follow Me? You know, got to like that after a while. And he took me around those lives, you know. We went to Egypt, we went down this path, and I had been to Metropolitan many times, but I never saw this road. It wasn't until like 8 years later I recognized it was the Avenue of the Kings, someplace. You know that? It's not the statue of the animal heads and so forth. It's a statue of the humans. I'd never seen that before. And then to where else do we go? Oh, Egypt, Greece. Middle Ages. Being ordained a priest, lying out flat, and next to me was that Adele. And all kinds of stuff like this was happening. Well, this is all really way out of my. And other things would happen, like, I mean, I would be able to see halos around people. Not everybody. And and then I start getting this guy shooting up, jumping out of my head, you know. And somebody explained to me about Kundalini, because I mean, it was all funny, and dreams, all kinds of dreams and whatnot. So he really right away fast, right? Next thing that happened is, right, Baba has an accident. I mean, I'm really in this state of turmoil, and Baba has an accident. Right? And I thought, he has an accident. So I called up Margaret. Baba has an accident. You know, I expect her to give me some explanation or something. And she says, well, so what? So I thought, yeah, so what? That was good. And it didn't bother me at all. But in the meantime, I'd been going around telling people, well, they saw I was acting quite weird, and telling them about this, and one of them was Ann Forbes. Some of you know Ann Forbes? Yeah, Ann Forbes, and we're telling her, and she called me up right away, and she said, I heard your master had an accident. And I said, yeah. And she says, he's no master. Masters don't have accidents. And then, of course, Baba came back to Myrtle Beach, up in upstate New York, and down to New York City itself, and he was there, and he said, that we could come to see him, and also that we could bring people. So Anne says, I wouldn't go. Nasters don't have exodus. She kicked herself for 4 years after that. But anyway, there were other people that I took. Of course, if Baba said, you can bring people. Well, I had about 14 people maybe or so I was going to bring. But I didn't take them all at once. I just took them one at a time. Because Baba wanted you to introduce these people. And another strange thing that went on was this. The first time we went to see Baba, this was not taking people, right? Harold and I went to see him, and he was it Consuelos or Ivy's? Ivy's, maybe. It was at Ivy's place in the beginning, the first time we went, right? Yeah. We went both, but anyway, this one. And after Baba had the accident, right, he said, write me jokes every day. Write me funny stories and jokes. It will lighten my burden. So I went mad, looking at comic strips, all the literature I ever knew that had jokes in it, Mark Twain and all that. And every day I wrote to Baba. I sent him jokes. And jokes. So now we go to see him after this accident. And he was in bad shape, I think. And we went into the room. Was I going to be able to see him? Well, it's funny. I saw his face. I could see his face. But I couldn't see his body. Because they told me he had casts on and this kind of thing. But I had improved. I was able to see his face, and that was quite interesting. But the good story is that Baba was sitting in the chair. He was lying in the bed like this, right? And we go in, and Harold, Harold. Am I tied to the world? Okay. Harold walks right up to Baba, and he leans over and hugs him and everything, right? And I'm still a little stuck. I'm standing at the bottom of the bed down there, and I'm getting to space in focus, And Harold's talking away, and Adi is giving interpretations and everything. And as I'm gradually coming to, I hear Adi saying for Baba, oh, Harold, you don't know those letters and jokes you send me every day. They made things so much better. They helped me so much. It was just wonderful. And Harold is saying, oh, that's nothing, Baba. Think nothing of it. All of a sudden, I think, Harold, I don't know, he's like that, He doesn't say, well, it's not this or that. He just, yes. And so, all of a sudden, it comes into my head. Baba's thanking him. But and I'm looking from the bottom of the bed. Baba is not paying any attention to me at all. And he's loving Harold and thanking him and whatnot. I look at him and I'm about to say, but But Baba saved me. I just about got my big mouth open. He's not looking at me. He's looking at Harold even. The big mouth open. And I think, well, what do you want, credit? He says he enjoyed it. What'd you send it for anyway? It helped him. What'd you send it for? To come here and get credit in your charge account or whatever? And as soon as I thought that, Baba, who's not even recognized that I'm there, right, turns away from Harold, swings at me, and winks at me. Say, go on. So he was always kind to me. He never let me make a complete fool of myself in front of other people. That's the important thing. But it was great. It was great. Let's see, where am I, huh? It's interesting. One little footnote here is, although many people I took to see Baba, right, had such different reactions. Those I thought were wonderful and brilliant and would fall for him, right? Didn't respond too much at all. And some I thought were, really had great experiences with him. One person I took had to take the subway back, and as soon as she got back, she called me up and she said, what happened is all the people on the subway were so beautiful. Now that takes a master. Because you can understand how Baba would like this one or that one. But all these, what shall I call them? I mean, and she was feeling that Baba love for them. It was fascinating, right? Another woman who was a Rosicrucian, she said, all the buildings are leaning away. They're all But the one little thing that happened just 2 days before I came here, right, is one woman whom I was very close to at that time, right? And maybe I still think she was the most brilliant person I had known. I mean, the capacity, right? And I took her to see Baba. She was a nurse. And when she came out, I said, Matil. And she said, he's a very sick man. And I didn't even notice he had a cast on or anything, right? And we had drifted apart. That was 1952. And before I came here, 2 days before I came here, this is 1990, thank you. And when Matil called me up on the phone, and she said, I've been thinking about this experience. We had drifted. She said, what, and how foolish I was, and what I was offered and didn't take. And now suddenly she's tremendously interested in Baba. After 38 years. And as Adele pointed out to me, she said to me, where does she live? And guess where she lives? She lives in Denver, Colorado, where that fellow Bao just came from. What are you doing out there? Years it took her to call me up and say she's interested. So I guess there's no end to hope. But anyway, what else do I want to say in here? Oh, of course, we got involved with all these people in New York, right? Adele and Phyllis and Dana and Darwin and Fred and Ella and John Bass. John Bass latched on to us, and he stayed with us till the day he died. And then there was Jean Adriel, who had to live with us for a while, and then there was Gabriel, whom Harold had to go and live with for a while. Gabriel Pascal. And well, anyway, all these. Life suddenly was different, and. What else shall I tell you in here? Oh, in 1953, Baba, in 1952, he had given Beryl, what's the last name of her? Beryl Williams, a note for Marian Anderson. Now, who's Marian Anderson? She it's a great, she was contralto. But no black singer had ever sung on a major stage in the United States. And when Beryl came to the center here, right, Baba had her put up on the center at that time because it would be almost impossible. Not here. I'm not. Where am I? I'm in California. Okay. And the Myrtle Beach. Myrtle Beach. When I put her up in the center because it would have been almost impossible for her to have stayed any place. I mean, prejudice was unbelievable. And so he had given her a note for Marian Anderson. And she knew that this concert was going to come up because Marian Anderson was supposed to sing on the stage at Washington at some big political affair, right? And the DAR, the Daughters of the American Revolution, made such a fuss that they wouldn't let her sing. No black person had ever sung in a major place on an American stage. And which reminds me of that funny little joke that Roosevelt pulled off, right, when he was president, and he was invited to speak at the DAR, their annual affair, you know, and he addressed the audience as fellow immigrants. Was never invited back. I thought that was the best thing he ever did. Anyway, we had a friend, Loretta Weller, who recently passed on, and she was an opera singer. And this was to be at the Metropolitan Opera, the old Metropolitan Opera House, which isn't there anymore, where Marian Anderson was to sing. And so Loretta knew the people there, and so what they decided was to buy a huge bouquet of white flowers we bought, right, and put the note in the middle, and Loretta would go backstage with Beryl and give this bouquet to Marian Anderson, right? And that's what we did. We went and went to the show, and of course she got a great hand, and then backstage with the bouquet of flowers, right, and left the note with Marian Anderson. Now, what Baba put in the note, no one knows, right? But I like the story. Let's see. Again, I mean, the whole thing is so difficult to tell you, right? I heard Tom this morning using words like, with Baba, it felt as if you were swimming in the atmosphere, right? And that's the whole thing. That's what swimming, dreaming. Sometimes I think to myself, I wonder if I ever really did meet Baba in the physical body. I wonder if it was always in the subtle body. I felt that my feet were never on the ground with him. I was lost someplace. Right? So, 54, that's when Baba called the men to India, right? And then, of course, we all went to the airport. Drove Fred Winterfeld there, and I got so excited driving him. I was going down Central Park this way, and you're supposed to go this way, and the cops stopped me, and Ella almost passed out, you know. And who else was there? Oh, we met people like Joe Harb I hadn't met from the West, and of course Malcolm Schloss, whom I really loved very much right away. And when he came back from India, saw him. And then who came back with him? Also Charles Purdom. And it was, to get all of this together was fascinating, right? But again, I can only tell you these external things, right? All I can tell you is these are just externals, because the love, the truth, and that shining beauty, the only beingness is the only word I can think of. Beingness, that exquisite beingness that you could enter into with Baba. Right? And again, as Tom said this morning, that how would you describe Bubba? When people say to me, well, what was he like? You know, like you could say he was so tall and his green eyes or something. And I could only say, he was the most human being I have ever met. That's about what I could do. Now, do you want me to talk more in
You have 25 more minutes.
Okay.
Do you want to take some questions?
I can take questions, but I don't know any answers.
I heard you have good story on the boat when you were sleeping.
Yeah. Oh, here.
At the center?
Well, let me get in the right year, okay? What year is that? Yeah. Okay. I'll start 56. How's that? This one? That's it. Okay. 56. And you stop me when you're ready. Okay. Okay. So 4 years went by. You've no idea how fast time goes. Anyway, Bob is coming to New York again, right? And this is 56. Okay. Now, I am spaced out all this time, spaced out. And then it suddenly hit me, realistically. Maybe you've been making this all up. How do you know? Maybe you got spun out and then you liked it, so you held on to it. Maybe. Now, it's not true. It's really kind of crazy to be true. I mean, it probably isn't true. I don't think I wanted to learn the truth, but I'm driven to the truth, and I had to know. And so I had to test my delusion, if it were such, and I went to see Baba at the Hotel Delmonico, where he was staying in New York, right? And I was a little jittery, and so I waggled my way in to one of the committees whereby they were going to arrange the flowers in the room where Baba was, so I could get a preview to make sure. And I did, and I went in there, and I was pretending to arrange the flowers, right, in a booth, behind. They have, screen, a little section there, a very fancy hotel. And then when Baba was going to come into the room, I got back behind the thing like this. First of all, I was a little illegitimate in being back there. It was a little a sneaky arrangement. And secondly, suppose when he walked in, I don't know, and I got back down here, and after he came in, I start peeking. Thank God he was still Baba. But I remember that. Because I hear some of these men who come from India to tell you about bewaring about the intellect. I hear that, But I still want to know, and so it was wonderful. No.
What was it that you saw when you saw them?
Yeah, what happened? What did Bob do?
It was near the door, so I sneaked out the door and went and got in the room, in the doorway where I was supposed to come in. Huh? Yeah. Oh, I didn't say anything to him. No.
Bob say anything later then to you?
Yeah. So then, not about that, but anyway, this starts a long story, which I probably won't finish. Right? I had been ill for months. I was feeling terrible. And I'd gone from one doctor to another. And are there any doctors here? I have to be careful. I was diagnosed as having cancer, tumor, and I forgot what all, right? And they said, well, maybe you're pregnant. So they put me up for tests, frogs, rabbits, blood, all this stuff. You're definitely not pregnant. And then they would do it again and again. But what was the matter with me? Well, they didn't know, but they thought I better plan to have some exploratory surgery. Whatever that is, right? But I wasn't an explorer. But I went, so now I walked into Baba, this time, right? And this was so cute. I went, again, he's sitting on this chaise lounge, and they've got him all decked out with flowers and everything. And when I'm coming in the door, right, and Baba sits up, puts his feet down, and he doesn't quite get up, but he looks at me like this, and he goes like this. And I said, yeah, what's going on here? And you know what he said? He said, it's a child. But he said, you had nothing to do with it. It was all my idea, he says. I knew it wasn't my idea, but well, so I went back and started over with the tests. No go. And I was never pregnant. Never pregnant. According to the medical world, I was never pregnant. Up till the day the baby was born, I was never pregnant. Well, as I said, the title of the talk is, I don't know what I'm doing. I hope I should have put that in the past tense, but I didn't. No, well, all right, Baba, hold on. And so, let's see, what do we do? We sat with him when people came in, and especially with reporters who came and people who made videos. I don't know, I think they were commercial mostly, but anyway. And the reporters would ask him questions, all kinds of questions. The one that stands out in my mind that I loved him for is, right, this one reporter, he was asking a question, he was giving answers. In the meantime, he was loving everybody, This was just a sideline with Baba. And so then this reporter was getting a little annoyed, and he said to Baba, right, how do you know? You're giving me these answers, everything snap. How do you know? And Baba looked at him and says, I know because I know. No reference to the Britannica or anything at all. just I know because I know. And so it went like that, right? And should I stop?
15 minutes.
Okay. Then we had they had the dinner at the Delmonico. Huh? Longshots. That was in Delmonico, yeah. You don't think so? They moved in. Anyway, it was a gorgeous restaurant. The Longshots. Okay, the Longshots. Okay, Adele says it wasn't. Okay, it was in Longshots anyway, wherever Longshots was. And so everybody had said to Baba, you only come here in the summer. and your birthday's in February, and we never have a birthday party with you. We have to have a birthday party with you. Baba says, okay, we'll have a birthday party. So we had a birthday party. That was July 22nd. And I think one of the wildest times we all had with Baba was at that party. It was just, the atmosphere was so thick you could hardly breathe at this particular thing. Now, I did have some pictures of that, right? This one, I'll pass around if you like. This one I brought because here is Baba, right, sitting under the mural. Behind him are two naked women. I mean, he got into these incongruous arrangements, right? This is a Hawaiian thing back here, right? And there are some others. Here's what? Erich, Mayurji, Elizabeth, Adi, Nilu, and there were a few more at the head table, right? And he sat there. And then we all sat around in tables at angles like this, right? And the dinner was served. Baba had grape juice. He had a toast for grape juice. And somebody said, feels like the Last Supper. You know, people like to make connections. Baba just raised the glass to his lips. I don't know if he ever got any in his mouth at all, right? But the truth is, I don't remember anything we had to eat there, and I don't know anybody who did. We were all in a state of ecstasy. It was the most ecstatic experience anyone could have. It was just sublime, the atmosphere. It was like a dream. A beautiful, wonderful dream, right? And then Baba said, he doesn't want to eat. Your love feeds me, he said. And in a sense, we all felt that way. I don't remember anybody eating anything. I mean, I don't know. Just the atmosphere was too much, right? He explained at that time something that he's still explaining, and it's still hard to grasp, it seems to me, right? That it is very difficult to gain any advancement spiritually, let alone God realization or anything like that. And he said that, you have to give up everything. And it is impossible. How can your body give up your body? How can your mind give up your mind? It's an impossible thing. But there is, and I remember his words, he said, there is something great, right, that will bring you to that great state. And that is just make others happy. It seems so easy when he said it. And of course, one thought of the New Testament where Jesus said, do unto others what you, how's it go again? No. What you, well, you try standing up here. Whatsoever, I got it. Whatsoever ye do unto others. Notice the ye. Ye do also unto me. And in that sense, he meant that when you make others happy, you make him happy. And that's one of the ways we really can act, right? But again, all those people on the subway, I don't know. So, but he tried. He really tried with us very hard. Right? But we loved him. We loved his bliss, right? And then Baba got up and he walked around the place, and he would touch this one, and he would touch that one. And Erich came up to me and he says, Baba has a message for you. So I didn't know whether I was supposed to go up and say, give me my message, or but I didn't. I just sat there. And Baba came around behind me, and I can never forget it. And I brought some of these pictures, which maybe you've seen, I don't know. And Baba walked behind me. And here Harold sat on one side, and I sat here, and Loretta, the one who had gone with me to Marian Anderson, sat on this side. And Baba, I won't say he walked, he floated, he drifted, behind me. And you can see that I was gone. And then he came and he put his hand on my head. And he held it there. It was, I just have to leave it there. Unbelievable. Now, of course, in the picture is not only Harold, me, and Baba, but down here is Ruff. Some people said, but I cannot say that Baba said this to me, and I made a point not to ask him questions. It was enough what he would give you, that he was bringing the soul into the body, but I cannot. Some people who thought they knew would tell me that kind of thing. Well, I don't know if he went to see this or something or other. Anyway, okay. Well, Baba did not speak to me. I did not speak to him in words. But as I think back, just now, I begin to realize that I almost never spoke to Baba. And that he almost never spoke to me, except on one occasion, which I'll come to, which he was giving me some orders. But I mean, this asking, what do you want, or, anything. I never had any conversations with Baba. It was always unseen, right? Okay, shall I finish this about leaving Newark Airport then? Okay. So then we were going to Myrtle Beach with Baba. And we met him at Newark Airport, and we went on the plane with him. Before we got on the plane, Baba sat in the airport, not in a chair like that, just a regular waiting thing. And everybody would mill around him, and then he would suddenly go, and everybody was kind of like this, waiting for him to go, It was a game he played, keeping you on toes. And he called this one, and then you'd go, then finally he would get to you, And he finally got to me. Well, by this time, even I began to know I was pregnant. 7 months. But the doctors didn't. So Baba called me, and I knelt down in front of him and tried to hug him a little bit more, right? And Erich had been giving this rather repetitious instruction, right? As each one came up, love me more and more. I would always say, love me more. It's always greedy for love, grabbing. And so he says to me too. Baba says, love me more and more, And I was happy. But then Baba goes, Yes, he went. And Erich says, no. Baba says, you have the love. Now, it sounds good, and I felt good, But I feel definitely that this was one of the ways that Baba would work with you. He would make you feel your potential already in the now. You know how he talks about the past and the present and the future. He would make you feel in the now, what you would consider what you might become, And in that way, of course, you would swell up and try harder to become this thing. Because that's what happened to me. Then they would try, to do it. But it was a wonderful experience. It was just great. And then, I knew there were other people who wanted to call. So I tried to get up, but I couldn't. So Baba says to Erich, help her up. So he did. Right? And I got up, and we got on the plane. We all got on the plane, and we sat there, right? And Baba sat on the left side. That was just a propeller, a plane. In the left side back, about 5 seats from the rear, and maybe I was 5 seats in front of him with Harold, right, and everybody else in front. So the plane was going this way, but everybody was looking this way. Almost got my head permanently reversed, right? And finally, Bubba says, everybody turn and face the front. But he kept calling out messages to us. He didn't really abandon us, right? So one time, here I was. I thought I should look a little better. So I had bought this hat. So Bubba sends up the message, I like Virginia's hat. None of the other men told me that. But what I'm trying to say is Bubba was so human. He was such a beautiful, cute human being. And then another thing that I recall is that Harold says to Bubba, Bubba, this is Virginia and Harold's first airplane ride. It was. 1952. So Bubba sends up the message. This is Bubba's first airplane ride with Virginia and Harold.